Hey everyone! Today I'll be walking you through how to use Adobe Illustrator to design a board game token and then later laser cutting it with the GLOWFORGE. To begin, create a new document by going to File, New. And under Units, make sure you have points selected. Press OK. Now we're going to create a circular damage token for one of your board games. Select the rectangular tool right under the type tool or T tool. Click and hold, and out pops a bunch of other options. Select the ellipse tool and click and drag across your canvas. But notice how it's not a perfect circle, it's still oval shaped. Now if you press Shift key on your keyboard, that makes it into a perfect circle, no matter how and where you drag. The circle is looking kind of bland right now, so let's go ahead and add some design elements. First, make sure you have the selection tool selected, which is up here on the left side. This is called your toolbar. And notice how there's a V right next to selection tool? That's the shortcut key for this tool. So if you press V on your keyboard, you have chosen the selection tool. Now click and drag to select your circle. Go to Object up here on top, Path, Offset Path, and check off Preview so you can see what you're doing. Now let's give this offset value of negative, let's try 15. We could make it a little smaller. Let's give it a 20. Great. Now hit OK. Let's add some more to it. Go back to your Shade tool, click and hold, and select the Star tool. Click and drag across your canvas. But there's a tip to this tool. You can increase or decrease the number of pointy ends a star has by using the arrow keys on your keyboard. If you press the down arrow key on the keyboard, that removes one of the pointy ends of the star. And if you go up on the keyboard, you could increase the amount of pointy ends. Now, press the arrow key down until you get to a triangle. But before you place a triangle on a canvas, press and hold the Shift key on your keyboard, then let go of the mouse. That straightens out your triangle. Before we do the next part here, go to View, and make sure Smart Guides are turned on, and then go to Rulers and click on Show Rulers, or Control R for short. If you drag from the ruler down, you drag what is called a guide. A guide can help you align and position shapes and objects on your canvas. So let's drag another one from the top. Actually, let's move this top guide here. Move it down to the inner circle. There we go. Select your triangle and drag it to the center and align the bottom side of the triangle to the bottom side of the inner circle, or to the bottom guide. Great. Let's resize the triangle. Select your triangle and notice how there's a box surrounding it that shows that you've selected the triangle, and that box is also called the bounding box. The bounding box has a bunch of white squares around it called handles or anchors. If you click and drag on one of these handles, you can resize the triangle manually. Select the top center square of the bounding box. But before you click and drag, press and hold the Shift key on your keyboard. That forces the triangle to stay in its position. Let's drag it down to about this size here. That looks good. Let's copy the triangle. Select it and press Ctrl+C on your keyboard. If you want to do this manually, go up to Edit up here and select Copy. Notice the shortcut key for that, Ctrl+C. And now you'd want to paste the copied object. To do that, go to Edit and select Paste. And the shortcut for that is Ctrl+V. You'd want to learn these shortcut keys because they really do help speed up your workflow. There you go, the duplicated object. Now drag it up a little bit. And now we need to rotate the triangle. It's the same method as resizing the triangle manually, but instead, if you go off the white square a little bit, your mouse cursor turns into a curved double arrow. That's the rotating symbol. And like before you click and drag, hold Shift on your keyboard, then rotate. By holding Shift and rotating, you constrain your rotations to 45 degrees. Align it to the top of the guideline. Make sure it's centered. Great. Select both the triangles by first selecting one of the triangle. Press and holding Shift key on your keyboard. The Shift key is very important, guys. And now select the other triangle. Now I want you to copy, and instead of just pasting it, I want you to do a paste in place. So go to Edit up here and select Paste in Place. And a shortcut key for that is Shift-Control-V. Now rotate it. Looks great. Let's touch up this a little more. Select the inner circle, and on the right hand side, you have more panels. Look for a stroke, and if you don't have stroke on the right side, go to Window and select Stroke. If you're missing any sort of panels, they would all be here. You just have to find it and select it. So now that you have stroke, increase the weight size of it by, let's give it a 13 point. That looks about right. Now select all 4 triangles and go back to the right side and look for the color panel. Now again, if you don't have the color panel, go to Window and select Color, which is right here. I want you to remove or get rid of the stroke. Click on Stroke, which is this box here, and click on None down here with the red diagonal line across a white box. Now click on Fill, which is the color, and select Black. Wonderful. So the GLOWFORGE cuts and engraves by cutting stroke lines and engraving shapes. Now as you can see, our inner circle right now is a stroke. If you export that to GLOWFORGE, it's going to read it as a cut. But you don't want to cut the inner circle out. It's part of the design. What we should do first is select your inner circle and remove the fill color. Now with the inner circle still selected, go up to Object up here and select Expand. Make sure Stroke is selected. Click OK. That turns your stroke line into a shape. So now when you export this to GLOWFORGE, it knows to engrave this area here. Before you engrave with GLOWFORGE though, you have to make sure all your shapes are combined into one. So select all the shapes here, the triangles and the inner circle. And to combine these shapes, you have to use the Pathfinder tool. To locate the Pathfinder tool, go to Window up here and select Pathfinder. And right under the Pathfinder tab, select Unite under Shape Modes, which is the first box on the left. See how it merges everything together? Now for the final bit of design, I guess we should add a number. So go ahead and go to your left side toolbar and select the Type tool. Let's give it a number. Let's call it a 1 damage token. Now let's resize the font. Double click on the 1 and highlight the 1. Now go up top under font size, right here in the drop down. Type in the box. Give it a 200 point size. Notice how the 1 disappears? It's because the bounding box around it is too small. So let's increase the size of the bounding box by clicking and dragging. There you go. Now let's change the font. Select the 1 and go up top again, and in the drop down menu select a new font. Let's choose Impact. Everybody has Impact. Beautiful. Now let's put this 1 in the middle of this circle. Drag it towards the center. With your 1 selected, use the arrow keys on your keyboard to position your 1. By using the arrow keys, you can move your 1 in small increments. Use your own intuition here, guys. That looks great. We're almost done here, guys. But don't forget about what I said about engraving. The GLOWFORGE engraves by shape. Right now, our number 1, it's not a shape, it's a text. So you want to turn that into a shape by selecting it and again going to Object and selecting Expand. Make sure you have Object Fill selected, click OK. See how it turned that into a shape? GLOWFORGE not only engraves and cuts by shape and stroke, it also cuts and engraves by color. So if your 1 was set to another color, when you export this file into GLOWFORGE, you could choose a new engraved setting for just the 1. But now let's keep it black because we want the same engraved setting for all the blacks. Let's give the stroke a different color. Select your stroke and don't forget to remove the fill. So select fill and click on none. Now select stroke and give it a, let's say, red. If your swatches panel is not shown, go to Window and select Swatches. Okay, we're almost done here. The last thing we should do is to resize the board game token. A lot of board game tokens range from sizes 19mm to 25mm, sometimes more, sometimes less. But let's make this one into 25mm. Select all the objects on the screen and select Object, Group, or Ctrl-G for short. Now with the object selected, go up to where it says Width and Height, or W and H for short. Make sure the chain link is selected. Let's change this number to 25mm. Remember when we created the document, we set the measurement unit to points. So if you want to set it to something else other than points, make sure you enter the correct abbreviation. In this case, it's double M's for millimeter. When you set that, it converts it automatically to its equivalent in points. That looks great. Now we could finally export this file to a file that GLOWFORGE can recognize. Go to File, Save As. Give it a name. I gave mine boardgame1, and under Save As type, select either .pdf or .svg. And now click on Save. Great, now it's ready for laser cutting. Please check my other tutorial on how to import the file and laser cut it with the GLOWFORGE.